The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although they think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Hello and welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. We are Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre. And, well, it's a beautiful spring or early summer day.
Quite warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about 70, probably about close to 80 now.
Yeah. Even up at the lake, it's in the 70s.
And when I left, of course, we get the morning sun there, and it was warm, yeah.
All right. Well, we have a lot of heat going on here in Nevada as well with the end of the Nevada legislature.
What a segue.
Yeah, and we are getting scorched by Democratic tax increases and other big state efforts to subvert our Constitution, although we do have to give a shout out to Governor Sisolak. The day after we had a show last week, he actually did veto AB 186, the National Popular Vote bill.
Craig, you have any applause in there you can just cue up?
I don't think he heard you.
Hall of Famer Craig and
Yeah.
sound effects.
Okay.
Yeah, that was quite something, and it was as timely as our discussion of the subject.
Right.
It was literally the day or just within hours of our discussion.
You know, we also scooped Tucker Carlson again
Yeah.
last week. Yeah, because we were quick to criticize the Mueller report's acceptance of Russian interference in the election, and by gosh, that Tucker did too on
Voila.
this next show. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite
I wonder if we'll scoop him again today.
I think, here's what the deal is. He's listening to the
He's
show.
listening
Yeah.
to our show.
It's
Of course he
worldwide.
is.
It's
Yes.
worldwide.
It's on www.americamatters.us. We do stream worldwide on the World Wide Web.
Why wouldn't he listen?
Sure. Well, there's some of the bad things that we got out of the legislature. At the last minute, the Democrats really pulled rank, and they killed the electoral.
I'm sorry, did you say they were rank?
They were
Democrats are
rank,
rank?
and they pulled rank.
Oh, and
as
they
well.
pulled rank.
Yes. They showed their rankness.
Yeah.
When they killed the education savings accounts. But, you know, you really can't put all the blame on the Democrats because the Republicans had a chance to fund it, and they wasted a special session on showering Sheldon Adelson with an extra room tax and other concessions to have the Raiders come, and they ignored it. And so it was just a statute. It had no funding because of the Republicans, but they repealed the statute. So
it is a statute, and I, as a former stockbroker, the idea of education savings accounts merely comports with the IRS code.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the IRS should not be the determinant for permitting people to do with their money what they want to do with their money.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And merely to take the pre-tax benefit from a 529 plan as an example, as good as that is for some people, it would be better for others to have the choice not to commit to a 529 plan. And that's my objection to the IRS tax-deferred plans, as they, because there's a variety of them. And so, yes, it's bad for some, and it doesn't affect others, and that's how they get around that,
Well, in the next day or two, I'm going to have a new article on my blog, which is called Tax Honesty, or non-taxpayersforronpaul.blogspot.com, in which I try to show how the deep state convinced Americans that a classical liberal tax on public offices and privileges was sold to the American people as a Marxist tax on everything that comes in. And I hope you'll look out for that. We're posting it, Talking Truth to Power, the link to that. But at any rate, getting away from that, we also, at the state level, we have collective bargaining for state employees. That's going to cost a lot of money down the road.
Yeah, but we got the money.
Oh, yeah, we do.
The state of Nevada has the money.
Uh-huh. And we are now, as far as gun control is concerned, Nevada is now a red flag state, which means that somebody can take away your weapons if they think that you're going to do something bad, from a preemptive strike on your right to bear arms.
You're a mean old person.
Yes.
Yeah. Just by being alive, you have the potential to hurt somebody.
Yes. And also bump stocks were outlawed. And, the Republicans also share some blame for that, because they threw these little businesses under the bus under Jeff Sessions when he went against the VATF rules and also outlawed them at the federal level. So
yeah, Republicans need to grow a spine on the Second Amendment. I mean, it's just unconscionable the way they just shrink every time there's a gun-free zone crime, and there's going to be any number of these going forward. There've been a number of them in the past.
Right.
So they're coming, and they just shrink. They just find their hole and they crawl into it. It's really pathetic.
Yep. And so we'll see where all that goes. Also, like Milton Friedman said, there's no such thing as a temporary government program or temporary tax. Yeah. And we had 2 taxes that were supposed to sunset that got extended by the legislature. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
One of them, the extension of the commerce tax, that will face a court challenge because the Democrats pushed it through without a 2/3 vote, and the Republicans are contending that required
I think Settlemyre is going to file suit.
Yes.
On that, and should.
He should, yeah. I mean, who knows whether, these 2/3 rules and everything are great on paper, but somehow these politicians figure out a way around them so often, and the courts, you can't rely on the courts to enforce them either.
Yeah, no,
they haven't in the past.
No, well, and then is there any effort? Is there a legitimate or strong enough effort to do so? I mean, that's lacking in most cases. So.
Well, so like Mark Twain once said, everybody's wallet is in danger whenever the legislature is in session.
Yeah, that was Mark Twain.
Yeah. And so this legislature is over, and we can only count our losses as we continue to find out exactly what they've done to us.
Yeah, if we wake up to discover it. I see where the feds are buying millions of diapers for the border.
Diapers, huh?
Diapers.
Wow, you look fantastic. Where did you get that perfect tan?
Oh, thank you. Element Tanning Studio.
With me as your attorney, you can rest assured that your case will be handled competently and that I will be responsive to all of your needs and questions. My goal in every case is to have clients that are satisfied with the outcome of their case and who would recommend me to others. Give me a call at 775-324-6464 or visit my website, billkendalllaw.com. My number again is 775-324-6464.
Have you, a friend, or family member been diagnosed with cancer? Dr. Forsyth at the Forsyth Cancer Care Center offers an all-inclusive program to treat adult types of cancer. The Forsyth Immune Protocol Cancer Treatment Plan, in a current prospective study of over 6.5 years and 1,200 adult cancer patients, has produced a remarkable 30 times greater survival statistic when compared to conventional full-dose chemotherapy. Greater than 95% of all their patients choose low-dose insulin-potentiated life chemotherapy, using only 10 to 15% chemotherapy dosing with insulin. Dr. Forsyth has long been considered one of the most respected physicians in the United States, particularly for his treatment of cancer and the legal use of human growth hormone. Located in Reno, Nevada, Dr. Forsyth has seen patients from all over the world. To schedule your consultation today, call 775-827-0707. That number again is 775-827-0707.
To find out what's hot and happening, join Lady J for Smooth Jazz Tune-Up.
Join me Saturdays, 10 to noon, here on America Matters.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre, and we were talking a bit about the end of the legislature.
I thought we were talking about diapers.
Okay. You want to tell us more about diapers?
Well, the reason the feds are buying millions of diapers is we have just set a record for the admission of children caught at the border. 55,000 children caught at the border.
Wow.
So that's a whole other segment for the show. But anyway, I just wanted to follow up on that outro.
Okay. Well, I didn't know what to talk about next, but since you brought up the border, maybe we can talk about President Trump's threatened to impose 5% tariffs on Mexico. You don't think it'll ever happen?
No, I do not. This is the way he negotiates, and it's a considerable threat, I think, primarily for the $800 billion industry that we have across the border from Mexico. So I think it matters too much to both parties, especially Mexico, I think. We could afford it, but they can't afford it.
So do you think that they're capable of doing what he wants them to do?
Yes. I think they're here in Washington, and they're meeting with Pompeo, pomposity today. And,
Pompeius fatus assus?
And I don't think they will ever take that first step of a 5% tariff on.
All right, so he basically wants them to do better policing on their 150-mile border with Guatemala, and to
yeah, that's the choke point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to he says that their laws are stricter and they're not being enforced.
They're not being enforced.
Yes, and he wants them also to do more, agree to take the amnesty people and hold them in Mexico where they're waiting for their hearings, as
Absolutely.
I understand it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fair deal for the parties involved.
Right.
If they don't want to stop them there, there's going to be a price to pay.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a price.
Okay. Well, we'll see if it works. We do need something to happen on the border. We have record numbers of amnesty seekers, and Trump is getting a lot of flack, but it's really the Congress that has created
absolutely.
This whole mess.
Absolutely. They want a mess for him to solve, and he's up to the task, but he just doesn't get any help.
I've been arguing for a 10th Amendment approach to this, and a semi-libertarian think tank called the Wisconsin Center just published a study showing how the states have in the past issued temporary work visas of their own without bypassing the federal government, which is just too bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And they don't have the knowledge. 500 people in Washington and the bureaucracy, they don't have the knowledge in a Hayekian sense, Friedrich Hayek. Mm-hmm. They simply don't have the knowledge to know what to do.
Well, they don't have the appreciation,
right,
as well as the knowledge.
Right.
But there was a Bracero program in California back in the 50s and 60s.
Yes, there was.
And it seemed to work well. I think automation and mechanized agriculture would work better than a new Bracero program, personally. But apart from that, it can be done. A legal methodology for bringing staff in to take care of what is effectively the 1/6 or 1/7 of the world's economy, which is California.
Mm-hmm. And the Bracero program did work well. I think the only real criticism of it was that the people that took part, the workers that took part in the program, were basically attached to one employer, and they made it difficult for them to switch employers.
They weren't free to move around.
Yeah, freedom of market. They cut down on the market freedom, which hopefully would be addressed if we have another guest worker program. But a lot of people on the alt-right don't even like the guest worker program. Like you say, they believe in automation, or they believe actually in increasing the minimum wage so that more Americans will be happy working
in the fields?
Working in the fields for $15 an hour instead of 10? I don't know.
I don't see that happening.
No.
But I do see mechanized agriculture.
Yes, it's there. It's coming.
That's a reasonable solution to all of this, but there is, very, very little discussion about it. So,
well,
because they want those people here.
Yeah,
they want them to vote eventually. That's the deal. That's what it's all about.
Well, I don't know about that. Now, a guest worker program, but you're right. I think Rush is right. I mean, being a citizen should be a little bit harder to be than it. And there is a distinction, not for basic human rights. Whenever the Constitution speaks about persons, in regards to the Bill of Rights, that means everybody, citizen and non-citizen, have the right to due process and the right to the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and everything else. But as far as other things, other benefits of citizenship, there should be a more of a bright line between a citizen and a non-citizen, and foreign national.
Very much a distinction between the two.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that I agree with, and as far as the alt-right goes. All right, so today was also the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion.
Disambiguation Day.
Yeah. And, it was a major battle in the World War II, and no doubt it helped to end the war when we took back France, and then we moved on into Germany, as well as the North African front that the British were involved in, and the conquest of Italy that General Patton was involved with. But none of these things were decisive in beating the Germans. I mean, the Russians had much more to do with beating the Germans than the Western Allies did. There's no doubt that the Russians, the amount of German divisions killed and wounded and captured, and the amount of German generals captured, the ratio is about 80-20 in favor of the Russians. And it bothers me that we celebrate whenever we celebrate World War II, we act like we beat the Germans. Now, we did beat the Japanese with very little help from other countries except Australia.
Yeah, but what did we win?
We lost China.
I mean, where's the victory? How do you get a tangible victory out of the armistice of the Second World War? I mean...
Well, we became numero uno.
Oh, I see. In the context of control.
Yes.
Hegemony. I see.
Yes.
Okay. I always forget that part of this.
Yeah, we supposedly took over the mantle of the British Empire.
See, but what is never discussed, won't be discussed today or ever in polite circles, by that I mean the mass media, is the role that Wall Street played in the arming of Adolf Hitler.
Okay.
And that goes back to Ford and IT&T, not AT&T, IT&T, Standard Oil, which provided synthetic fuel patents to Hitler so that he could run his mechanized divisions. I mean, there was no war without Wall Street. And if you go back and look at some of the behavior in the course of the war, for example, Ford's plant, which was a major mechanized vehicle plant, I think trucks and Jeeps and all that stuff, in Cologne, Germany, was never attacked. There were other plants that were attacked, but that was a major facility there, and that was never attacked during the war. So it was permitted to operate for the duration of the war. And these are the kinds of things that came out in the course of the Nuremberg trials. And one great work from Anthony Sutton, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, reveals all of this stuff. That, we were very protective of American subsidiaries during the Second World War.
And and Hitler and Mussolini were considered great men in the 30s. I mean, they both made the cover of Time magazine, I believe, as Men of the Year, and there was an economic miracle and so on. And socialist Germany brought Germany back from the Weimar Republic and hyperinflation, according to these people. And they did have some effect on it, at least in the beginning. And, they always say Mussolini made the trains run on time, although some people say he really didn't. But
I wasn't there.
That was one of those urban legends that grew up. And fascism was highly regarded as by many people in the West with ties to Wall Street as
efficient.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, however, what they were really looking for was a way to control the destiny of Europe. I mean, the overall scheme was to create some sort of pan-European government relationship between those countries.
Right.
And they saw in Hitler a way to get their feet wet, so to speak.
And it even goes back to World War I when Germany was the pariah, and then the banking in like Jakob Schiff and another Swedish banker smuggled Lenin into Russia.
Yeah, on a sealed train.
In a sealed train
with how much gold was on that train?
Gosh, in our dollars, it would have been several billion, I think.
Just enough to get things rolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Leon Trotsky with about 300 dedicated Brooklyn communists from Brooklyn.
Yeah. And then that was the origination of what we call neocons today. Neoconservatives have their roots to Trotsky. And you have the likes of Friedman, Thomas Friedman from the New York Times today, who thinks that the China model is the one we should be striving for. This is the neoconservative mindset. Bill Kristol, whose magazine is now defunct. I mean, this is the Potteritz and all these neocons. That's where, and a lot of them are Jewish.
Yeah, you can't deny it.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin said that 80% of the original Bolsheviks were Jewish, and even after Stalin purged a lot of their leaders in the 30s, still on the grassroots level, about 50% of all the Bolsheviks and communists were Jewish.
Yep.
And
they definitely were well ensconced.
Yes, and they were also always very heavily involved with the secret police in Russia, and are blamed for the Holodomor, which is the starvation of the Ukrainian Christians by the communists in the early 30s.
Well, this is why the American people are more worried about fake news than terrorism.
Yes.
Destination Midtown. Experience the difference. Reno's premier shopping extravaganza. Everything imaginable and more. Midtown matters.
The reason we feel so strongly about our mission is that we know that many veterans would forgo their medical treatments because they simply can't afford the accommodations. The guest house is one of a kind in the country, funded entirely through private donations. Want to know how you can help? There are many ways you can be involved, from volunteering, providing dinners, or supplying items from our wish list. Find out more about the guest house at www.veteransguesthouse.org. Serving veterans today, tomorrow, and for years to come.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station, the power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
Hi, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I am your host, Brendan Trainor, my co-host, Leland Faegre, and it's time to give a shout-out to our main sponsor, Reno Computer Services. Reno Computer Services is Reno's premier computer repair, malware removal, and data recovery service. They provide routine maintenance and virus and malware removal and protection. And they have a preventive approach that delivers reliable, consistent, and secure PC performance. Call them now at 775-737-4400 or go on the web where they are at www.renocomputerservices.com. You know, this today is also being celebrated as the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square. And there are some things about this that the American people don't understand because...
Before you go into that, isn't it ironic that Disambiguation Day falls on the same day as Tiananmen Square?
Yeah.
Is that a coincidence?
Yes.
Or was that by design?
Well, let's see. What was by design there? Let's remember this is 1989, the same year that Russia communism imploded. Mm-hmm. So what was Tiananmen Square? We are told it was a democracy movement. But in fact, many sources that you can read online say that democracy was not really the issue. The students there were complaining about inefficiencies in the communist system, inflation, lack of opportunity, and so on. But democracy was not really brought up. Another interesting thing is that tank man picture that you constantly see as a symbol of government repression against the demonstrators, that actually occurred a couple of days after the event was over, and the tanks were actually leaving the square, and tank men actually was just some passerby that decided to jump on the tank and try to talk to the people inside, and bystanders were actually upbraiding him and saying, just get out of the way and let him through. So it was no great one man against the brutality that we see constantly symbolized.
It's
on
amazing
TV.
how an image can be used to project a narrative which is false.
Right.
It happens over and over again. How can we? You can imagine these conspirators sitting around a table. How can we use this image to support our goals?
Yes, exactly.
How can we create, a narrative that is false that allows us to pursue our ends? That seems to be what. There's some desk in D.C. or at Langley.
Oh, and there's more than one, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I was joking.
Yeah.
But I mean, it happens just all too often for it not to be the case.
And as Marshall McLuhan said, the image is the massage, and that we've been well massaged about what happened. I'm not claiming to have read all the literature on it, but in fact, it seems that this may very well have been the first color revolution for regime change organized by the West against another regime. The CIA appeared to have been heavily involved in the Tiananmen Square incident, and the students the Chinese army that was sent to Beijing was at first completely unarmed. Maybe they had some riot gear, but otherwise they had no guns. And
at some point they got them.
Yeah, at some point they got them when the workers, it was Chinese workers that spontaneously joined with the students, and the workers used violence. They somehow, gasoline was rationed at the time. There were very few cars in China in 1989.
Hold the phone. You're telling me that gas was rationed in China?
Yes, it was.
Imagine that.
But somehow they got gasoline to make Molotov cocktails, and they actually burned some of the troops to death before they finally armed the troops.
I remember that at the time.
And came down on the workers, not so much the students. All the students were most of the students, if not all of them, were spirited off and given scholarships to Ivy League colleges.
Spirited.
Spirit is a good word. So we really don't know a whole lot about what's going on in China. I know that Pompeius Fatimus Assis came out with upbraiding China for their lack of civil rights. And again, the Chinese system has always been this way. I mean, it's a blend of Confucian bureaucracy and Marxist Leninist thought and capitalist.
Lately,
yeah. Well, since this Tiananmen Square is when the capitalist roaders came to power.
Yeah, that's been basically what the rapprochement was all about. Kissinger wasn't over there just to tour the Great Wall. They were arranging something for the future, and that we're witnessing it now.
Yeah, and I know that if you're convicted of a crime in China, you're sentenced to death and it's executed almost immediately, and then your family is billed for the bullet that they used to execute.
It's got your name on it?
Yeah. So it's a different system completely, and there's no doubt about that, and it undoubtedly has some human rights abuses, and they censor the internet, and they have this social system formerly run by the government where you gain social points for being good and shopping at the right places and not causing disruptions. These social points enable you to get more benefits and so on.
There's an accreditation now system being invoked. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh boy, is that ever authoritarian, huh?
Yeah.
We do it our way.
Compared to Facebook,
yeah,
where we have very little freedom of speech.
No recourse or anything. Amazing.
And I'm also told, I also found out today, reading some people that have been to China, I haven't been there yet, that if a policeman stops a Chinese motorist to give him a ticket or whatever they give him over there, that people often gather around and berate the policeman. they have no fear of the cop.
I saw that story just the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, if you did that in America, you know, in many places, even though it's against the First Amendment, you can still be arrested for trying to videotape this with your cell phone, you know. So, but, you know, policemen in America are notoriously thin-skinned about people.
Well, I guess the policeman represents the oligarchy that they can't touch, they can't reach, and so that's as close as they can get.
Well, yeah,
you're local cop.
Yeah, but you can't deny that the Chinese have lifted themselves out of abject poverty. I mean, there's still a lot of income inequality that they are talking about, and so on. But they, you know, people are not starving in China anymore.
Fascism has been good for China. They may call themselves communists, but
yeah, but they're really,
they're
really more like fascist government control.